Hey everyone! Today we need to talk about a moment that happened on live television inside a congressional hearing room that almost nobody saw the full story behind. So picture this with me. In 1971, in Montgomery, Alabama, a young trial lawyer named Morris Dees co-founds a small nonprofit alongside his law partner and a civil rights leader named Julian Bond. The mission is simple, and it's noble. Finish the work of the civil rights movement. And for a while, they do exactly that. Dees wins a landmark lawsuit that bankrupts one of the most violent Ku Klux Klan organizations in the country. He becomes a legend. His little group in Alabama becomes the moral referee of American life, the one organization that gets to decide who counts as a hate group and who does not. Newspapers cite them, the FBI cites them, corporations write them checks. For 50 years, when this group pinned the word hate on you, the label stuck. And then, on April 21st, 2026, a federal grand jury handed down an 11-count indictment, and it accused that same organization of secretly funneling millions of dollars to the exact kind of extremists it was founded to destroy. Who am I talking about? The Southern Poverty Law Center. But here's what almost no one is connecting. There is one number buried in that indictment, one specific check, and the moment a Republican congressman started pulling on that thread, a Democrat on the committee tried to shut the whole thing down on live TV. Once you see that number, you'll understand why. Because this isn't really a story about one nonprofit in Alabama. It's about who gets to decide what hate is in this country and what happens when the referee turns out to be playing both sides. So stay with me. So here's what actually happened in that hearing room on May 20th, 2026. The hearing had a blunt title, The Southern Poverty Law Center, Manufacturing Hate. And early on, the committee's top Democrat, ranking member Jamie Raskin of Maryland, reached for the oldest weapon in the drawer. He repeated the claim that Donald Trump had called neo-Nazis very fine people at Charlottesville back in 2017. It's a line you've heard 100 times. It's been in campaign ads, it's been on cable news for years. And then Tom McClintock, a Republican congressman from California, did something almost no one ever does with that line. He read the rest of the quote. McClintock pointed out that in those very same remarks, Trump also said, and this is the direct quote, "I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally." McClintock told the room the ranking member knew that line existed and left it out on purpose. He called it deliberately perpetuating a dishonest claim. Now watch what happens next, because this is the part that should stop you cold. A Democrat on that committee, Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia, did not fire back with a fact. He didn't bring a competing quote. Instead, he reached for an obscure parliamentary procedure and demanded that McClintock's words be taken down. Taken down, as in physically stricken from the official record of the United States Congress. Sit with that for a second. The Republican said, "Here is what Trump actually said." And the Democratic response was not, "You're wrong." It was, "Erase what he just said." The Republican filling in as chairman that day, Darrell Issa, had to rule on it. And he ruled that McClintock's words did not violate the rules. They stayed. So when McClintock got his time back, he looked across that room and said 6 words. "The gentleman can't handle the truth." But here's the part nobody clipped for you. McClintock didn't stop there. The instant his words survived, he pivoted, and he started asking about money. A specific dollar figure, a specific check this organization had allegedly written. And the timing is the whole story, because the attempt to erase his words came right as he was closing in on that number. So what was the check? To understand why it terrified them, you have to understand what this organization had quietly become in the 50 years since Montgomery. Because while everyone was busy fighting over a quote from 2017, the real story was sitting in a federal indictment that nobody in that room wanted read out loud. So let's go back to what the SPLC turned into. Because somewhere along the way, the group that bankrupted the Klan stopped chasing Klansmen and started building a list. They called it the hate map. A map of the United States covered in little markers, each one supposedly a hate group. And for a while, those markers meant Nazi cells and Klan chapters. But over time, they started landing on a very different kind of target. Mainstream conservative and religious organizations, Moms for Liberty, a group of parents who show up to school board meetings, the Family Research Council, Turning Point USA, the Alliance Defending Freedom, a legal group that has won case after case at the Supreme Court, all of them branded with the same word the SPLC once reserved for cross burners. Now you might think, so what? It's just a label. But here's the problem. People act on labels. In 2012, a man walked into the Family Research Council's headquarters in Washington with a gun and a bag of ammunition. He later told the FBI he found his target on the SPLC's hate map. A security guard was shot stopping him. That is not a metaphor. That is a man bleeding on a lobby floor because of a marker on a map. And it didn't stop with lone gunmen. Years later, the FBI's Richmond field office cited the SPLC as a source while building a case to scrutinize Catholics who attend the traditional Latin Mass. Let that land. A federal law enforcement agency leaned on this group's research to go looking at American citizens over how they pray. So this was never just a nonprofit handing out opinions. It had become a machine. Point it at an American, say the word hate, and watch the consequences roll downhill, from banks to donors to the FBI to a man with a gun. And the people running that machine knew exactly what they had built. We know they knew because one of them said so out loud in the most respected magazine in liberal America. But to understand why that confession lands so hard, you have to follow the money first. Because the real question was never what the SPLC was saying about other people. The question was what the SPLC was doing with the hundreds of millions of dollars it raised by saying it. So follow the money. On April 21st, 2026, that federal grand jury indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center on 11 counts: wire fraud, false statements to a federally insured bank, conspiracy to commit money laundering. These are not angry blog posts. These are federal felonies. And the central allegation is staggering. Prosecutors say that for nearly a decade, the SPLC secretly funneled more than $3 million in donated money to individuals tied to the very groups it publicly swore to fight. We are talking about people connected to organizations like the Ku Klux Klan and the Aryan Nations, the exact monsters this group was founded in Montgomery to destroy. The acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, put it in plain English. He said the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was, in his words, manufacturing the extremism it claims to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred. Now stop and think about that as a business model. If you are an organization that raises money by warning donors that hate is everywhere and growing, what is the one thing you cannot afford? Peace, quiet, a country that's actually healing. You need the threat to keep climbing. And the numbers tell that story better than any speech could. Committee Chairman Jim Jordan laid it out. After the Charlottesville rally in 2017, the exact moment the country was most afraid, the SPLC's annual income didn't just tick up, it nearly tripled. It jumped from around $51 million a year to $133 million. Let me say that number again, $133 million. As Jordan put it, creating hate turned out to be more profitable than fighting it. So now the picture sharpens. The map wasn't just careless. The labels weren't just sloppy. According to this indictment, the fear itself was the product and business was booming. But here is what makes this so much more than a Republican talking point. Because everything I've just told you, the con, the money, the manufactured panic, was confirmed years before any Republican said a word about it. Not by Jim Jordan, not by the Trump Justice Department. It was confessed by a man who sat inside that building, watched it happen, and wrote it down in a place no conservative could ever be blamed for. His name is Bob Moser. He's a journalist, a self-described liberal, and for years he worked inside the Southern Poverty Law Center as a writer. In March of 2019, just after the SPLC abruptly fired its own co-founder, Morris Dees, Moser published a long essay. Not in a right-wing outlet, not on Fox, in The New Yorker, one of the most respected liberal magazines in the country. And in it, he wrote a sentence that should have ended the SPLC's credibility on the spot. He described the legions of donors who believed their money was doing the Lord's work, and then he wrote 7 words. We were part of the con, and we knew it. The con, his word, from the inside. Moser described the open secret, too. He said the easiest money the organization ever made wasn't from justice. It was from raising cash off Klan fighting from wealthy liberals up north. And this wasn't a one-time stumble. Remember the name Maajid Nawaz. He's a British anti-extremism activist, a Muslim reformer, a liberal. The SPLC put him on a published list of anti-Muslim extremists. He was the opposite of one. And in 2018, the SPLC was forced to pay him $3.375 million and post a public apology admitting he was not an extremist at all. So connect the 3 dots with me. In that hearing room, a Democrat tried to erase a Republican's words about Charlottesville. On that hate map, the group was branding parents and pastors as bigots. And in that indictment, prosecutors say the donations were flowing to actual extremists the entire time. 3 different rooms, 1 single pattern. An organization that discovered it could get rich by deciding who America was allowed to hate. And they knew. Their own writer told us they knew 7 full years before that indictment ever dropped. So when McClintock started asking about one specific check in that hearing, and a congressman lunged to shut him down, this is the context they did not want you to have. Which brings us all the way back to the number, the one buried in the indictment, the one they tried to erase before it could be said out loud. So here it is, the number a Democrat tried to bury before it could reach the record. According to that federal indictment, the Southern Poverty Law Center allegedly paid nearly $300,000 to the chief organizer of the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally. Read that one more time. The Charlottesville rally. the exact event the ranking member was using that very day to paint Trump as a friend to Nazis. While Democrats were on camera invoking Charlottesville to club their opponents, prosecutors say the group they were rushing to defend had quietly helped bankroll the man who organized it. That is why the words had to come down. Not because they were offensive, because they were a loose thread and pulling on it unravels the whole sweater. So, what does all of this actually mean? It means the referee was playing both sides. The organization, founded in Montgomery, Alabama in 1971 to bankrupt the Ku Klux Klan, now stands accused, 55 years later, of writing checks to the very kind of people it was built to destroy and then selling the fear it manufactured for $133 million a year. KlanWatch, it turns out, may have quietly become something closer to Klan funder. Now, to be fair, the SPLC has pleaded not guilty, and a jury, not a YouTuber, will decide the facts at trial. But you don't have to wait for a verdict to recognize the pattern, because you just watched the organization defend itself in real time by trying to erase a single sentence. And here's the thing, you now know the full story behind that viral clip, which is more than almost anyone who shared it can say. If you want the next breakdown the moment it drops, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because patterns like this don't stop, and neither do we. And tell me in the comments, what was the moment in this video where it clicked for you? Was it the map, the money, or that one check from Charlottesville? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The referee was never neutral. He was on the field the whole time.